So now in update response values, we can change that code to get a specific screen option right here. But you see that not only do I have to retrieve that screen option, but I also have to update that screen option's value. So we're also getting the value from that text box. I would have to copy and paste this code 3 times to update 3 different screen option values. I'm not a big fan of copying and pasting code, as I'm sure you're aware of by now. So we'll go ahead and create a new function that's update screen option. It takes in our screen option type enumeration to tell us what screen option we're updating. And we'll go ahead and pass in a text box that we can get the value from. So I'll go ahead and copy this code, and I'll change get screen option to use the screen option type we got passed in. And I'll change this value text box to instead be the text box we got passed in. And we're all set. Now I can get rid of this code, and instead I can call our new function update screen option. I can pass in the screen option type that we want. In our case it's going to be first, and the text box that we want to update it with, which in this case will also be first. I'll go ahead and copy this, paste it, change those names, and we're all set. Now there's one other thing that we need to change, and that's in the on pre-render. We're updating the text box with the value we get from a screen option. Again, I could change this code, copy and paste it 3 times, but we're not going to do that. So instead, I'll create a new function, which is update text box, and it takes in a screen option type, and the text box we want to update. The first thing I'm going to want to do is retrieve our screen option. And then we're going to update our text box's text property to the value we just retrieved. Now I can go ahead and change this code to use our new function, which is update text box. And we'll do that for the first screen option with the first text box. Copy, paste. And we're all set. So our functionality should be the same as phase3.aspx, where we updated one screen option and retrieved that value back to put in the text box. The only difference is we have 3 text boxes now, and we're updating 3 different screen options. So let's go ahead and build the project. And again, I would move those assemblies over into our web project. And let's write some rules for this now. So I'll create a condition. Create a configuration variable. We'll just go ahead and stick with our names first, second, and third. We'll create a screen. We'll add our 3 screen options to the screen. We'll save. Now if you notice, where do I add our application link? I have 3 screen options to pick from. One important thing to know is that when we call an AppLink from a screen option, that AppLink only has access to the single screen option that called it. It does not have access to anything else. So that AppLink can only update the screen option that calls it. Since we want to update all of these screen options, we're going to have to move the application link onto the screen level. When we do this, we'll have the ability to update all screen options on this screen. We still won't have the ability to get access to any configuration variables outside of this screen. So I can't get access to phase 3, phase 2, or phase 1 from within this screen. Now I'll show you a method in just a few minutes on how we can work around that and still get access to those. So I'll go ahead and save these. Come into my demo. Okay. And let's launch configuration. Move this line item. And you see we have our fourth app link now. We have our screen title up here, the 3 screen options. I can go ahead and click on the application link for the screen. And we have our 3 text boxes. So this should function exactly the same as our other app links. We're just updating 3 screen options now instead of 1. I click update. I see the values on the left hand side. I still have the values on the right hand side. I click continue. Finish. I can reconfigure this line item. Click on the app link, and I see the values got brought back successfully. So now we have an app link that can update multiple screen options that are on a screen. This app link cannot get access to any configuration variables that are not on that screen. So let's go ahead and see if we can figure out a way to work around that so that our app link can see configuration variables that it otherwise wouldn't see. We go ahead and finish configuration. The way that we're going to do this is by using request parameters. So let me quickly show you what I mean when I say request parameters. So let's assume that we're going to google.com. Everybody seems to be going to google.com these days, so it seems an appropriate example. Request parameters start with everything after the question mark in a URL. After the question mark, you'll see a series of key value pairs. The key is the key of the value we're sending in as a request parameter, and the value is obviously the value. So what I can do is let's go ahead and say I want to pass in a description to google.com, and it'll be some description. So that's how I pass in the description key request parameter with the value some description to google.com. But we're not going to be going to google.com. We're going to be going to our app link, which, appropriately named, will be phase5.aspx. Now let's say I don't just have one request parameter I'm sending, but I have 2. When you have multiple request parameters, you separate them with an ampersand. And so then I can go ahead and pass our second request parameter, which will be background and some background. So what we're going to want to do is, instead of calling phase5.aspx from our screen, we're going to want to call this entire URL and pass in these request parameters and then get access to them. But before we write the rules, let's go ahead and go into the code, and we'll build that phase5.aspx and see if we can't do a few things with those request parameters. Oops. So let me copy phase4. Paste it. I'll rename the title. I'll go to the inherits and change the class name we inherit from. Go into the code behind page, and I'll just change the class name and the constructor.